Hi guys, how are you?
Fine,
Hello,
thanks. And how are you, Mr. TC?
I'm good, Wanga. I'm good. I'm sorry, guys. Like the reason why there's a bit of a delay is because there's so much noise here. So I was just waiting for a couple of minutes before the noise subsides. So if you can give me maybe an extra 5 minutes, and then the noise is just gonna go down a little bit. So just lies with me, just that's what I've been waiting for a while.
Okay, sir.
Hi guys, sorry I'm back. As I said, that there was a lot of noise going on around me, so couldn't really talk. And I'm hoping that they're not gonna come and make noise because they're trying to fix something here. So there's a bit of hammering, and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of noise. Hopefully, um, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So anyway, now continuing from where we left off last time. I'm good, Busi. Thank you. I'm just seeing your message now. So I'm going to share this thing here again, but I feel like other specific outcome too are basically doing the same thing that we've been looking at when we're talking about the CPA. So now, when it comes to that CPA thing, excuse me. Um, when it comes to that CPA thing, all right, share my screen. Okay, so I was saying, like when it comes to that CPA thing that we spoke about yesterday, so today what we're simply doing is like a continuation of that. So looking at specific outcome two, a specific outcome two wants us to create an element of work. So prepare a time estimate from element of work. So that is what the specific outcome deals with. So technically taking it back, it deals with how exactly do we break down a component of your program, and then from there, how do you do a time estimate? Like yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was talking about this aspect of how much time is money. Now, the reason why we're saying time is money is simple. Why? Because time is actually money. Like, so hence, if you're working on a project, there has to be a time plan. As much as you have the project plan, there has to be a time plan because your project plan is basically going to be timed. So you're supposed to have what they call a timeline. So hence, you need to understand the need to estimate time accurately in each and every project that you ever embark in, whether it's your personal project or it's a business thing that you're working at work. You need to have a time estimate because now they need to know, like the client needs to know when exactly they're going to get their product or their service, and your boss also needs to know when exactly you're going to finish, if they have to give you some more projects like that. Otherwise it will be pointless for them to busy to allow you to to work. So otherwise, it will be pointless for them to allow you to work on something when there is no timeline, when there is no time limit. So hence, we need to have that time limit there. So now, an accurate estimation is crucial skill in any project management. Without it, you won't know how long the project will take, and you won't be able to get commitment from the people who need to sign it off. See that? Very important. Because even myself, I wouldn't trust any person. I wouldn't trust any person who doesn't even know when exactly when they're talking about, okay, I want to give you a project, and then this person doesn't know when this project starts and when the project ends. Doesn't make sense. Then if you do not know, then I'll be wasting my time, because now imagine I'll give you work and you do not even know when you're gonna finish. You're just gonna work on that particular project for how long? Doesn't make sense. So we need to understand that aspect there. The time management is very important there. So whether you're dealing with sponsors, whether you're dealing with your job, whether you're dealing with your own project that you're doing on your own side, the time element has to matter, because whoever deals with that project, whoever signs it off, needs to know how long it's going to take. And then so that they can also compensate you in a proper way, so that they can compensate you fairly, um, like for that particular project. And then how then do we do that? How then do we estimate time accurately? So now for us to estimate time accurately, there are certain things that you need to understand. First, understand what's required. That is number one. Understand the scope of the program. What is the program scope? That is what is required. So now once you understand what is the program scope, then it makes your life easy, because now you know that okay, my program scope is this. So if I need to start, I need to start here. Identify all the work that needs to be done within the project. Use tools such as business requirements analysis, work breakdown structures, gap analysis, drill down, so that they can help you to do this with sufficient details, with sufficient detail there. So like I was saying, understand what is required. So when you understand what is required, it is easy for you to make like some sort of a breakdown, sort of like what you call a time estimate. Because now, now the question is then how exactly do you do that? So now when you're talking about a business requirements analysis, um, a business requirements analysis here. So we're simply talking about like the analysis deals with the analysis simply deals with I'm trying to find a way to simplify what it, like this thing in an easier way. Okay, so basically this is you gathering or like all the necessary documentation. That is what a business requirements analysis is. It's you gathering all the required documentation, gathering the required requirements. Like for instance, like now you are looking at talking with the people that are involved. Like you interview, you do like you talk to the stakeholders, you talk to the employees, you study the existing documentations and things like that. And then from there, then you're looking at the document requirements, because each and every project has got a document requirement. So now that document requirement has got a certain structure that it has. Like, there is the business process models. Like, for instance, in that company, there is a business process model that they're operating on. You need to see that. You need to use all those user cases, the user stories and stuff. Some of them you can develop, some of them the company already has. You see, so now when you take all these things there, you bring them together, they give you a better understanding of what exactly is required from your side. And then from there, now you can now order now like other steps. For instance, step number 2 here, they're talking about ordering activities. And then now list all the activities that you have identified, that you identified from what is required. Now you know what is required. So you've got all the requirements that you have broken down and you've come up with. And then from there, and then you're going to order now these requirements. Then you're checking, okay, this one will come before this one will come here, this one will do this one will do that. So now after you're doing that, at this stage, you do not need to add how long you think the activities are going to take. But you've got sort of a structure of how many of these activities that you have there, because you haven't decided the timeline, because the timeline also depends. And then from there, decide what you need to involve. Now you can start now dealing with like, okay, I will need a programmer, or I'll need 2 developers. And then from there, I'm also going to need a UI designer. And then from there, I'm also going to need a tester. I'm going to need a DevOps. I'm going to need a debugger. So I'm going to need all those people. I'm going to need a music composer. Let's say I'm making a game. I'm going to need a music composer. I'm going to need a graphic designer. You see that now you are deciding now who's involved. And when you're doing that, you're also sort of working at a cost, because now you need to know, okay, this person does that. This is how much this person is going to be charging me per hour and things like that. And then from there, and then make estimates. You see that now you start making estimates. So now when you start making estimates, you're making estimates based on what you need to involve or whom you need to involve, because this gives you sort of a basic idea now of, okay, so if so and so is working on this, so and so's average time on projects of this manner is 6 weeks, but the other guy, the average working time is approximately 7 to 8 weeks. See, then you start doing that. So begin to estimate the time that is needed for each task that you have, and then from there, and then you start breaking down all those tasks there. So let me see if I have, because I think I have something that has to deal with time analysis, a project time analysis there. So let me see if I can get that thing. Okay, I'm looking at the project plan. Oh yeah, there we go. So I'm trying to download this document so I can share with you. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, observe. I'm going to share it on my other screen, I think, yeah, so that I do not. Okay, I need to stop sharing from this side. Can you guys see that something that I'm sharing?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Okay, let me see. Oh, okay, it's not showing actually. Let me do this. Okay. I'm trying to see if it's possible. That and then this. Yeah, I think I'm sharing now. It's an Excel document.
Yes, we can see it, sir.
Oh, okay. All right. Notice here. So we've got this document here, which is basically what they call a project plan. And then I'm going to show you the second option, the second part here that talks about the 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 project costing. If you can see the other part, there's something that talks about project costing. This is a project that I was working on about 2 years back. So so now this project here, if you see that this here is basically what we are simply talking about right now. Right now, when you're talking about your time estimates and things like that, this is basically what we're talking about. So now, in a project name, you've got a project. For instance, this project here started from the 6th of December 2021, and then this project was supposed to run until the following year, all the way until May the 2022, which was last year. And then, so notice here, we press this part here into 2 phases, but mostly it was basically 1 phase. And then this is where the breaking down of the project. So this project was broken down like this for planning. Notice it was a web development program, but it's not a web development because it's like a portal. Because if you can check there, there's a lot that was coming into play there. So it wasn't like a normal website as most people will see. So now in this part here, I'm not going to show you because that was something that was something that we were working on, which was quite confidential. So anyway, the website here says that, notice here, website, received brief on a career guidance portal. Anyway, this is what it is. And then concept of the project. And then from there, finalize the service layer agreement development. But notice now, each and every, this here is the scope. These was the project. Like, so the first part here was talking about the project description. And then here we're looking at what is needed in this particular project, from web development, coding, implementation, iconography, navigation, layout, customization. And then you've got your framework, your web structure, architect experience, design and planning, copywriting and everything else, server and hosting, maintenance, testing, branding, and marketing. See, everything was structured. So now on this now, if I will scroll going this side, and then it was allocated according to the start day all the way to the finish day, when you are starting and when you are finishing. So this was the initial documentation. So it doesn't show everything from like until when you finish the project, because the document was finished when you finish the project. But and then now the start and the finish. When did you start? When did you finish there? So and then the development, that brief on the portal was given from this between these two. It was prepared and um, it was prepared from the 6th of December and it was finished on the 11th of December, and then it was literally shared out with the people there. But and then now if you notice there, and then there's responsibilities that are given, and then there's status, and then there's what we call comments. So the status there, the status can be in progress, not started, and things like that, or completed. See, and then the first phase there was completed, and then there's a second phase, there's a third phase, there's a fourth phase, there's a fifth phase, when you're moving down all the way there. So now I was a developer, so hence I had to start all the way until the end, but I don't do the other parts there, which is like strategy, branding, and things like that. I don't do that, and I don't test. So, but I did that a bit of the testing there. So, because some of the testing I was also part of it, but the branding and the marketing I have nothing to do with, because I don't do those. So now, when you observe here, and then we move on to the timeline. See, so everything is being given a timeline. So, and then you start with the first phase, and then that was done with that, like that. And then it's been plotted like, okay, this is when it starts and this is when it ends, color coded according to what you call. This basically means that it's completed. Yellow means that it's in progress. And then usually red or white means that we haven't even started with that part yet. See that? We haven't even started with that part yet. That's why if you check there, all the way that it says, okay, this one, I don't know why it's not color coded, but not started are supposed to be white. And then as long as we're suppose either white or red. So basically, this was the structuring of the program, and given the timeline, you notice. So when the project description was done, then there was a timeline. Notice here, you start a website from December and you finish it in April. That just shows you that the whatever website that was being made wasn't something small, which was like a proper what you call portal. So it was something quite big. So, and then the project costing. Now, going over to the project costing, notice that the cost of the web development was 80K. So now that included what, write the comments on what exactly that you're including. The designing was costing 20K. And then the content developers, the people that were developing the content were paid 40K. And then it talks about what exactly the content is. And then from there, and then you had a domain registration that was like 250, and then a domain hosting, which is like 6K. And then there's maintenance that was going to be, and then the total budget was given at a bottom there, which is like 100. Notice that. So that is your entire project from the start until the finish, including the costing that was quite involved in between throughout all of that. So basically now, whenever we're talking about all these things that we're talking about when you're dealing with these CPAs and stuff, this is what we're simply talking about. You're talking about how do you start when you're dealing with a website? Where are you going? The timeline that is involved. Because when you're giving this information to a client, your client needs to know that, okay, I am starting here, I am going there, and this is where I'm going to end up. So now, when you have all that, when you have listed all that information, so your client now has got a clue of, okay, so this is how much I'm going to this is how much I'm going to pay. And then from that much that I'm going to pay, this is how much, this is where all these things are allocated. So and so is going to do this, so and so is going to do that, so and so is going to do that. And then all of these people are divided amongst each other, and you already have a clue on what exactly you need to do. You've got everything in progress there. That's why if you check even your timeline gives the person like, okay, now even if a client now needs to check a client, it's easy for a client to check because the client has got the project plan. So once a client is the project plan, a client can tell like, oh, okay, this part was done and finished. And then the service level agreement was done, but it's still in the process. And then from there, and then customization, development, navigation, are they doing that? So I can check. So even if I need to see, I can see all those things there. The other projects are not started yet. Okay, we'll see when they get started, things like that. So those are some of the things that you'd be looking at there. So whenever you're dealing with your what you call with projects, these are the things that we're simply talking about there. Do you guys now like get an idea of what I'm talking about when you're talking about this? Hello?
Still following, sir.
Sorry?
I think I do understand, sir.
Okay, Mr. Kirby. So each and every project, you're supposed to have a time plan, something that's similar to that. There are other projects there that people do. Let me see if I can pick another project. Um, um, I'm trying to see if I can find something. Okay, I got something. Let me see if I can share that. All right, let me share this. So now with this one here, it's basically similar to the previous one, but this one is more complete. This one is more complete. So now there's a project timeline. This is for a game. This is for a game, but this game was completed long time. So now notice here, their project, this is here is what you call a project timeline. So a timeline basically based on basic, like if you check the first part, which is the first part of your project there, it talks about concept development. Concept development, look at how long the concept development took. They're developing the concept there, which is you got your market analysis, they're checking if the market is, you see that once you've got, this is what you call breaking down. So now when you break down, you are breaking down into all of these items. So for instance, here they broke down into, they broke down the project into concept development, system design, detailed design, text and refinement, the production part, and the other part. So now when they dealt with that, just 1 second. So as I was saying that this project here was divided into, notice the timeline is from January to May. That was the timeline, but it doesn't mean that it just stops there. It doesn't mean that it stops here. So anyway, saying if you check here, the project here was divided into the first thing, that first step that you're talking about here, the first step when you're talking about what you call the understanding of the requirements. That was very first part there. So now, when you're doing that, you look at it in this term of understand the requirements, and then you break down those requirements. So you're breaking down those requirements concept development system, what, and then inside those also there are subdivisions where you've got things like market analysis, feasibility, cost estimates, architecture, subsystems, refined design, make by design, complete definition. You see, all of these things there, they are important part of the project that needed to be dealt with. And then from there, after you have defined them, and then you start allocating time for them. Some of them will take a little bit shorter time. Some of them will take a very, very, very long period of time. So that they depends. If you check the, you see, even the value there, like notice here, this one is 15 days. The market analysis. This one here is 22 days, which is the feasibility. This one here was 21 days, the prototype development. And then this one here was 41 days. This one here, notice others, they even take 4 days because they're not so much. This one takes 6 days, but that one there will take 31 days. This one will take another 31 days. See, and then there are others that can even take longer. Like for instance, liquor regulatory, 109 days, almost the entire length of the project. This one here, 59 days. You see, so now when you look at that, the project starts January the 1st, and then from there, and then you notice according to the times when they're giving you, notice project starts, project ends, and then it's given a color code. Project starts, project ends, given a color code. Project starts, project ends, given a color code. And then from there, and then you start giving it the number of days, because here you're literally counting the number of days there. And then from there, and then you look at the milestones and when exactly the project was finished. So if you look at all this thing, that just gives you a rough idea of what you are talking about when you're talking about a timeline. See that? That's what we're simply talking about when you're talking about a timeline there. I hope this makes your things a little bit clear when it comes to these timeline things. Because now, whenever you're dealing with projects, that is one of the very, very, very important aspects. Designing of that timeline there. You need to know how to design a timeline, and you need to know how to work that particular timeline that has been designed. And if you're giving that project to your clients need to know, they need to understand that, oh, okay, this is what you're talking about, or this is how the project is going to take place, and this is the estimated time. Even if you might go over by a week, but at least they know that, okay, you're supposed to start here, you're supposed to finish there. Clients need to know that. And then we've looked at all that. So now, when it comes to methods for estimating time, there are certain methods that are used for estimating time. The first method is called a bottom-up estimating. That is the very first method there, bottom-up estimating. Now, when it comes to bottom-up estimating, here, they're saying that it allows you to create an estimate of the project as a whole, to analyze from the bottom up. So break down that task into detailed, and then estimate the time needed to complete each. You're considering each task incrementally to estimate the time that is required. So in project management, they say that you're breaking the project into smaller components. Like for instance, what I just showed you, the last example that I showed you, that is basically an example of bottom-up estimating. So here you estimate these estimates are like broken down, like they're aggregated, if I can put it like that, and then to create an overall cost of an overall estimate of the entire project. See, hence now when they're given here, they even give us tips on how to do that. How much detail you go into depends on the situation. However, more detail you go, the more accurate you'll be. So that is one of the major advantage with this bottom up is, but it only works with detail. If you do not have a lot of detail, then it's a problem. And then the second one is called a top-down estimating. Now, in a top-down, you develop an overview of the expected timeline first. So literally now you develop an overview, like you just guess numbers from the top of your head, and then you come up with a sort of an estimated timeline. Then usually top down is usually based on previous scenarios. Like for instance, let's say I've worked with someone before, and then we designed a similar project, and that project that we designed took us 6 months. And that project took us 6 months, right? So when that project took us 6 months there, um, most of the times it's easier for you to say, okay, let's start here. I think this particular project, I've done something similar before. It took me 6 months. So hence, you are going to estimate a timeline of 6 months, which will act as a guideline. I don't know how true that might be, but now they're saying that it's often helpful to compare top-down estimates against your bottom-up to ensure accuracy. So it's usually like whenever you're doing these estimates, they encourage that you use both at the same time. Not like use both, but develop both, and then from there, then you compare and see if ever there is too much of a gap between the two. But if there is no much gap, which means technically you are almost right. But if there's a lot of gap in between, which means one of them is not really accurate, which means you need to do a bit more research. And then they're saying, please note that don't assume that the bottom up estimates are wrong if they differ widely from the top down. In fact, it's more likely that the reverse is true. Hence what I'm saying, that especially when you're dealing with top down, they basically base mostly a lot on experience, of which I don't usually agree with that. Like it's good because it's experience anyway, you've done it before. But most of the times you can be off by a mile. You can be off. So you need to be very, very, very vigilant, especially if you are using these estimation methods there. And then there's something called comparative estimation, whereby, like as I said, that you're looking at similar tasks before that you have done, and then you check. And then there's also parametric estimating, where you estimate the time required for one deliverable, and then multiply it by the number of deliverables required. Like for instance, if let's say I will say coding is going to take me 4 months, and then I've got six other deliverables that I have. So now I'll just say 6 times 4. So which means I'll assume that, okay, this thing is going to take me 24 months. You see that? So hence, here the giving is saying, for example, if you need to create pages for a website, you estimate how much it will take to do one page, and then multiply this time by the total number of pages that you need to produce. It takes you 2 days to make one page a website. So then how long is it going to take you to create 5-page website? 10 days at most. So that was parametric estimating there. And then there's something called 3-point estimating. Now with 3-point estimating, they're saying that here you build a cushion of uncertainty. You can do 3 estimates. See that one of the best case, one of the worst case, and the final one, which is the most likely case. So here you just go through different estimates. So for instance, I can go through all these estimates here: top down, bottom down, parametric, or cost comparative. You see that? So I can go through all these other estimation methods. But now this requires you to create these 3 estimates, which means even my project is going to take a little bit longer because now I have to create all these estimates and then compare them to see which one works better. Then we're given a tip here. They're saying that in the early stages of project planning, you often know how and who will do each task. This can influence how long the task will take. For example, an experienced programmer should be able to develop software much more quickly than someone less experienced, which is a fact. So hence, when I was talking about when you're allocating there, your allocation will basically tell you who is supposed to be doing what and when. And now once you have that out of the way, literally now you technically know how to how to allocate, especially in terms of the timeline. And then now, when it comes to preparing a schedule, now preparing a schedule, that is basically what we're doing here. This same thing that we just did here. That is basically you creating a schedule. So now, in preparing a schedule, there, once you have estimated the time, you need to prepare a project schedule, which is what you guys were looking at in those 2 previous examples that I showed you. Add your estimates to the draft activity that you produced, and then create what they call a Gantt chart. So now, when it comes to a Gantt chart, so a Gantt chart here is basically the diagrams that I was showing you. Those 2 diagrams that I showed you are Gantt charts. They're what you call Gantt charts. So they schedule those activities, assign the resources of those projects, and then finalize milestones and deadlines. So those were very, very, very good examples of what you call a Gantt chart. So after everything has been sorry guys, long day. So after everything has been done, create a Gantt chart. Create a Gantt chart and then show your project on a Gantt chart there. Then there's certain key points. So if your project is complex, you might find that identifying the critical path is helpful. This will help you highlight the tasks that cannot be delayed if you're going to hit your deadline, obviously. See, and then there is a lot now that is dealt with here, especially when it comes to you creating your Gantt chart, which is an accurate time estimation of your project. But the key points are unit scale. That is the biggest key point. Key point that you need. You need key scale, because if you do not have proper planning skills, and then you wouldn't know how long your project is going to take, and no one trusts you. We know that. But so in a simple way, the 4-way process. Remember that. Understand what is needed, prioritize the activities or the tasks, decide who you need to involve, and do your estimates. After you've done that, then you can create your Gantt chart. So that makes the estimates there. And then now the next specific outcome, they prepare a cost estimate. I'll show you what a cost estimate looks like. And then I will show you a second example of a cost estimate. I'm looking for something to show you here, a cost estimate besides the one that I showed you, which was mine there. I'm trying to see if I can get another cost estimate here. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, this one is huge. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit small so that you guys can see everything. Okay, it doesn't have figures, but it will give you an idea of what you're talking about here when you're talking about a cost estimate. So let me see if I can share that. So now this is what you're talking about when you're talking about a cost estimate. So now a cost estimate. Can you guys see my screen? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can say.
All right. So now a cost estimate deals with something like this. Like mine was a little bit on the simpler end of cost estimations. Like if you see this one, which is mine here, it was like on the simpler side of all these things there. Because it's simple head, it showed the cost, the cost and the comments and things like that. But now with this one here, it's a little bit different. This one is more comprehensive, but basically the same thing. Notice here you've got your project description on one side, which is job title and things like that. Then you've got head count, how many people are you dealing with? Then you've got cost to date, like how much is it really costing you? You've got an estimated cost, you've got a budget, and you've got the final cost. See, so this here is an estimation that takes it one step at a time. So here, starting from production, like this here is a breakdown for a game development. So they're making a game here. So this is where it starts. So you've got a production. Under production, you've got a project leader, the CEO, with outsourcing and contracting. You've got consultants, and then you've got the others that you have that are actually involved in the project. And then from there, and then you've got the designer, where you've got the lead designer, the game plan designer, the level designer, the designer himself or herself, the user interface, which is the UI, the user experience, which is the UE, and then you've got outsourcing and contracting, consultancy, other. See, all of these people here, and then the programmers, and then you've got all of these different programmers that you have with their own costs and their own time and stuff like that. So whenever you're working with any project, you need to know whom exactly are you going to use, how you're going to use these people that you're using, and how much you are going to pay all of these people there. So there is a lot that you pay. Remember, there's licenses, the expenses, there's studio costs, there's web development, there's marketing, there's localization, there's quality assurance, and so there is a lot that you deal with, especially when you're dealing with projects. So this here helps you to sort of have a general figure. Now, it's not just enough to have a cost estimate, like to plan on how much you expect to use, which is basically a cost estimate. But you need to have the current cost. So, for instance, if the project is going to be over 8 months, you're going to have a monthly cost review whereby it's listed the cost to date. So you know that, okay, up to this date, I've used 10% of my budget on APC. I've used 5% of my budget of this on this. I've used this and that and that and that. You see that? And then also at the same time, then there's an estimated cost. Now, try to compare the two, the estimate and the cost to date. And then when you're comparing those two, also work with the budget value. And then from there, when the project is done, you're going to write the actual cost. How much exactly did I spend on this particular project? Right? So all of those things are what you call your those are things that are used for cost estimate or cost estimate. So now we need to break down these items there. So we know that estimation involves us answering certain questions there. One is how much effort is required to complete each activity, obviously, because the more difficult the activity, which means the more work is needed, the more money you're going to spend. And then in terms of time, how much time is needed, that is a cost on its own. Hence the saying, time is money, money is time. And then what is the total cost of each activity? So now the project cost or the project cost estimation and the project scheduling. So these two here are the timeline or the project scheduling and the cost estimate are done at the very same time. We do it at the very same time. They're done together almost at the same time, those two. So as to allow you to plan better. Because now remember, the time estimate literally gives you sort of an idea on how much money you're going to spend and things like that. So you need to plan them, not like it can't be at a very, very same time, but you usually plan first and then after planning and then you put the cost. See that? So hence you need to understand that part there. That remember there are certain things that we need to do. So especially if you are working with computers and stuff, notice here there are certain costs like hardware and software, and then also there's maintenance there, then there's travel and training, and then there's effort, which is paying of software engineers and stuff. So you notice that all of these costs there are primary. These are the basically primary costs that you need to work from, and then from there, and then you can start dealing with these other costs that you have. Now, so that the following costs are all part of the total effort, like the total effort, which is the money that you pay for your programmers, engineers, and things like that. Cost of providing heating and lighting office space, notice the total effort. And then cost of support staff such as accountants, administrators, system managers, cleaners, technicians, cost of networking, communication, cost of these costs. Like you say, all these costs here are basically part. I'm saying a hand. Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Shirley.
Are you sharing your screen?
I'm not sure. Let me just confirm. Wow, it's not showing. Okay, thank you, Shirley.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's showing now.
Yeah, I
Is it
can
showing?
see it now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, we're talking about the cost. So the costing there is a lot of costs that are involved. So for instance, I was showing you here in this project that I was showing you with the with a with a game development there where you had different costs. So you had the cost for the personnel that you have, and then you have the cost for the rent, utilities, hardware, software, admin, HR, legal, accounting, finance, insurance, office supplies, recruitment, and there are many other costs that you have. And then also there's expensive like server and hosting, there's platform fee, travel, accommodation, subsistence, and you see, and then you've got licenses whereby you need to have licenses. Like for instance, if you're using Unity to develop, you have to pay for that Unity. Unity is free, isn't free. And then if you're using Amazon to host whatever that you want to develop there, you pay for that. So there are a lot of costs that have to be included, especially if you are working on your like depending on the project. So as long as you're working on a project, there is cost. Even if your project is selling shoes or selling bond paper, whatever that you're planning on selling at a particular time, there is always costs that are involved. There's looking at transport, you're looking at movement of A to B, you're moving at looking at what you call rental, you're looking at utilities and things like that. There's a lot that is to be involved there. So understand that part there, that there are so many things that are involved there. So like find this thing that they wrote here is so unnecessary there. So like here I'm talking about factors affecting software pricing, and then okay, not really related a lot here, but you know that whenever you are going to sell your game or whenever you're going to price your game also, let's say you're developing a game or you're developing any other software, because of all these costs that you have, your cost is basically going to be affected by all of these things that you're talking about there. They're going to affect the costing of the game. Like how much you're going to sell the game for is going to be affected by that. And then now when it comes to these softwares, there's something called also metrics. So the metrics that we deal with, there's two types there, which is size-related metrics there and function-related metrics. So now when you're talking about size-related there, they are basically related to the size of some of the output from activity. So, okay, let me simplify this. So usually, like when you're pricing software, like I was saying, that pricing of software, like we're just dealing with a little bit of pricing of software is a little bit off. So now when you're dealing with pricing of software there, one is when you're like, for instance, for those people, like for instance, let's say you are running a company that produces websites. Remember, a website is basically software. So now if you are running a company that produces websites and sells them to customers, or you produce them for a certain price, when a customer approaches you, one thing that you realize is that when you are charging for that, do not charge like okay, there are other people. So there are two ways of how people charge. For me, I never really charge functionality. I have never charged according to functionality. If I ever have to work on a website, of which I haven't done that in a while, but if I ever have to work in a website, I usually charge size related metrics. I look at the number of source code that I have written. I count number of lines. Like I wrote under HTML 600 lines on page 1, page 2, I wrote 2000, page 3, I wrote 400, page 4, I wrote 6,000 lines. So all in all, I'm looking at, right, I think I wrote over 15,000 or maybe 20,000 lines of code. And then, so now when I look at that, it's a lot of code that I've written, which means it's a long time when I've been writing that code, or I haven't slept in 3, 4, 5, maybe in a week, 3, 4, 5 days there, or maybe in a week, because I'm busy writing code. So when I'm charging, I am going to charge according to the number of lines that I have in my code. That's what I'll do. But then there are other people that charge using function-related metrics. Now, function-related metrics, now they talk about the overall functionality of the software. I've seen a lot of people that will look at it and it's like, okay, my software can do this, 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 this. Now, when I'm saying that like this, I'm not saying that you charge using one, but it depends on what exactly that you're doing. So now, if you've written software that is very functional, you're going to charge according to functionality. These are the software that some friends of mine have been working on. Actually, we've been working on this thing since 20, like when I left varsity, that was like I was 21, that was 2016 when I left, when I finished my varsity studies. And then from there, and then with a bunch of friends of mine, and then we started working on this project that we've been working on. It's an open source project, so it doesn't pay. So because it's just fun, that we're coding and stuff. So it was an open source project, and we've been contributing to that project for the longest time, since 2016, even up to now. We're still contributing to that particular project there. And there's a bunch of other projects that are we're doing these things. We're doing open source code. So now, what we usually do with these kind, we focus a lot. We don't focus on the size, but we focus a lot on the function. So whenever you're writing the software, we're writing for functionality and for productivity. So if, let's say, a company comes to us and say, okay, I want to use your software to do ABC, that's when now we start charging the company. And it's like, okay, cool. You're looking for this. So this is how much we're going to charge you, because you are doing A, B, C, D using the software. You notice function A, function B, function C, function, using that, because you are doing that. We're not charging you for you as using, but we are charging you for the functionality that you're looking, because we give you some basic functioning, and then from there, and then we start to increase the function level, then which means also the amount of money that you're going to be paying will be more based on the functionality there. And then now, also when it comes to costing, there's estimation techniques that should be looked at there. But the same estimation techniques are the same ones that apply from the timeline there, are basically the same. So remember, looking at what a budget, you're looking at the timeline of the project, you're looking at who is involved, and how much they cost, and things like that. So you find that most companies will prefer to work with younger developers for a majority of the task, and then an older developer, which is a senior developer, for the most complex of the task. The reason why is most of the time the most complex tasks, that do not take too long. They're mostly, we have to deal with testing, debugging, and stuff like that. So they need someone experienced to come and do proper quality assurance. But when it comes to basic coding and stuff, they'll hire junior developers that will come, flat the surface, and then usually they cost about a third to at most a half of what the senior developer charges. So it's cheaper for them. So now, when it comes to cost estimation, we need to look at that. Who's working on the project and for how long? How long is this project that we're dealing with? How certain are we that this project is going to be relevant, or it's going to work the way that you want it to work? And then what is our budget? And how are we going to distribute that budget throughout all the tasks that you have? Do you have to prioritize or not? See, so all of those things, they take a very, very, very big part, especially when it comes to costing. And then the techniques there, a cost estimation techniques. So as a technique one is something called an algorithmic cost modeling, which basically developed using historical cost information that relates to some software metric. For instance, as we're talking about, that we usually look how long we're going to write our code, and how long is that code that you are writing. And then from there, and then we can say, okay, cool. I think this is going to cost 2 million. And then if it's going to cost 2 million, I'm going to say, okay, it's going to look like the price. When I said it's going to, I'm going to sell it for 2 million, and then which means, yeah, probably I'm working at this much figure. We do not know exactly, but you're making it an estimate figure. The estimate of the cost is made of the metric in the model of prediction. And then expert judgment also, that is another technique that is used there. So expert judgment is basically what it is, using experts to cost estimate, or sometimes you at sometimes you at what you call, you use softwares for you to do that stuff, but that is expert judgment there. And then estimation by analogy. Now, estimation by analogy is applicable where the other projects in the same application have been complete, and the cost of a new project is estimated by analogy of this. We spoke about this. So whereby you taking project A, project B, and then you're looking at the similarities. They are very similar. And I assume they will take the same period of time. Hence, technically, they're going to cost almost the same amount of money. See, so now those are some of the aspects there. And then Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time available. Hence, what I was talking about, the time element there, that time and money are very linked, and that is Parkinson's law. If the software, the cost is determined by the available resources after, by the available resources, especially the time element there. So that time there that is available is going to estimate the cost. So the longer the project, the more it costs. But also it can work the other way. Sometimes the shorter the project, the way it costs. Like for instance, if a company comes to you and they say, okay, I want this and I want it in 3 months. And when you know for sure that, okay, whatever that you want is going to take, if I'm working alone, it's going to take me for 6 months. So now, then the client says, okay, I want it in 3 months. How then do you charge? When you are charging, you also have to charge like, okay, if I was alone, it's going to take me 6 months. But if we have another person, I can do it in 3 months. So which means when I'm charging, I also need to remember that I have to hire an extra person to come in. So I'm going to charge for that extra person also as well. I'll put a markup. See, notice here, if a project has to be delivered in 12 months and 5 people are available, the effort required is to be 60 person months. See that? So that is one thing that you look at. Like, okay, like you divide it like that, and then you allocate the people like that, and then that's what we're simply talking about there. That thing that I'm saying that if I'm alone, it takes me 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months, or 6 months. So which means if I have someone, then something that's supposed to take me half of that period of time, because the other person is doing the other part of work. But at the end of the day, it depends. And then there's something called pricing to win. Software is estimated to be whatever the customer has available to spend on the project. So sometimes some people negotiate. I've seen a lot of questions. Okay, someone asked me a question. I think like 2 or 3 days back. So this kid was like to me, my dad always speaks to, like, well, he goes on the internet and then he hires developers from India every time. He was like to me, are they smart? And then that was a very interesting question, because the reason I'm saying it was interesting is because someone online, like there's someone that I was chatting to, and this gent is from Germany. So we're having a conversation based on these things. They're about being hired online to do some work and stuff. So now this guy was actually complaining, saying that people usually they hire. Oh, by the way, is in Germany. The guy is Indian. He's Indian. So now this gent says that the reason why people hire a lot of guys from India is because they are very cheap. So, for instance, to hire a developer on Freelancer online will cost you an hour. Most developers, their rates, their flat rates, around 13 to 15. That is on the cheaper end. And then if you want more advanced guys, they can even go up to almost $60 an hour, which is 60 US dollars an hour. But now, and then this guy is like, a lot of people will go on freelance and then they will choose the Indian gents, because most of them, they are charging $6 an hour, which is 10th of what experienced developers charge, of which then they get hired. It's like they get hired. Why? It's because they are the cheaper option. You see that? So now, because of that, so whoever is pricing at that time, these guys from India, when they are pricing to win. because they want to be hired, so they don't care how much the client can pay them. As long as the client can pay them, then they're fine. Then they're going to do the job. Whether they do the job right or not, it doesn't really matter, or as long as they get paid. Of which most times, yes, they will do some of the work, and then they will do some of the work very good. But most of the times, they don't have a very good track record. Those guys, the cheap ones. I'm talking about the cheap ones. They do not have a very, very good track record. But people still use them. And then from there, and then if the problem gives them problems, that's when they stand up now and start looking for those expensive guys. But people usually use them for a weird reason, I don't know, but people usually use them. So hence now, that pricing to win technique works for some people, for certain projects. But for other people, it doesn't really work, especially if you're running a company. See that? So they hence now, if you check, the estimated effort on the car is dependent on the customer's budget, not on the software functionality. Most of the times, because you are charging this person $6 an hour, you don't care much about the functionality. You just care about, okay, this person can afford to pay me to make a program that does ABCD. So you don't really care about putting in a lot of effort on this and that and that and that. You don't really care much about that. But your main focus is you getting what the client needs and pushing it back to the client. Whether it has bugs or not, most of the times it does have, but that's how it is. That's the cost of doing business. So now, also remember here that there is also the top down and the bottom up techniques. They also apply the same here. They also apply here. The top down and bottom up techniques. They also apply in the cost estimation there. So you need to look at that there. And then there's also project duration and staffing. So now when it comes to project duration and staffing, is almost similar to what we're talking about there, that when you allocate a project, know whom you need to use and where. And now, if you get a project from a client, and according to your estimation, when you're using 5 people, it's going to take 6 months or a year. And then the client says, but I want this thing done in 6 months, not a year. Are you going to use the 10 people that you're using? Answer is no, obviously not, because planning is going to be dependent on manpower. So if the client wants half of the time, which means you need twice the manpower that you're willing to offer. If the client wants a quarter of the time, which means you must be willing to offer what you call 4 times the personnel, so that you can complete the project in the allocated period of time. See that? But also at the same time, it doesn't doubling number of staff doesn't mean that the duration of the project is going to be doubled. Also, you need to remember that, because it's all about strategy. It's all about knowing whom to use and where. That is the most important aspect, because you can have 200 people working on a project, and then you discover that it actually takes you longer to use that project than when you're using 50 people. The question is, whom are those people? What are they qualified for? What are they fluent in? And how do they do what they're doing? Do they even understand what they're doing? If they do, then it will take a bit shorter. Right. So those are the aspects there of cost and time estimation there. And then now, late delivery. Now, I spoke about this a little bit, that does late delivery affect our standing anyway? Hello? I hope you guys can hear me. Sorry. Okay, so sorry. Now, I was saying that late delivery, does it affect you in any way? So as I, that depends. But one thing about late delivery is it affects your integrity. That is one of the first things that you need to understand, that it actually affects your integrity. It doesn't mean that clients are going to up and leave at the very same time, but it affects your integrity because most of the clients will start frowning upon that, like, okay, you're taking too long to do ABC. Why are you taking long to do ABC? When are you going to finish doing ABC? And then they start coming to you, rushing you, rushing you, rushing you. So you need to understand, one is late delivery also depends with the type of the clients that you're dealing with. If it's a client that pays you a lot of money, late delivery is going to affect your status by far. Like, it's going to affect your status, obviously, and your eligibility. So some of your clients or your buyers or your bosses are not going to be amused at all. Imagine if your boss pays you like some guy, there's some guy that I know. This gent gets paid around 90K a month or so. So now your client or your company pays you 90K as a developer. And then in that 90K that you get paid, and then almost every time whenever they give you a deadline, you are always behind by a week or two. At one point, your clients or your bosses are not going to be happy with you. They might even call a hearing or even fire you for that. So if your client is not happy, they leave you. But depending now, some clients might like you and say, okay, cool, maybe there is a problem. I'll give you a thingy, a chance. Other clients would be like, no, you know what? It's okay. We understand that, probably there's a lot of things that came your way and then you couldn't deliver because of ABC. And most of the times it's because of your communication. Do you communicate? Are you very effective in your communication with your clients? Very important there. So hence now, for delivery, they needs to, like, certain things need to happen. One, you need to monitor. So for delivery, like it needs to be monitored. So they're supposed to be monitoring performance there. Performance measures provides management framework to facilitate communication, direct behaviors within the organization, foster improvement, and assess positioning and operational capacity. So hence here, what I'm talking about is performance has to be monitored. It has to be monitored very, very directly, and it should be communicated. So they'll come and monitor you. Like at work, I get monitored. Everything that you do, you get monitored. Sometimes if it's a client wants to monitor you, a client will call you. How far are you? Can I see what you have done? That is an aspect of monitoring there, especially if they have paid you, they will do that. And then there are aspects that comes to monitoring there. And then there's what they call supply chain response or lead time. See, lead time between placing an order and receiving or delivering these goods or services there. Delivery too early or too late may also incur unnecessary costs. Delivery too early can mean that goods have to be stored. For instance, if you're dealing with goods that are tangible, if you deliver too early, it's going to be a problem because now these goods have to be stored somewhere because the client hasn't made space for them yet, which will incur costs in warehouses and stuff. And then delivery too late also will incur costs because now you have to set up facilities and things like that so that you can distribute these goods. And some of the goods might even be spoiled at the end. So when it comes but to things like software and stuff, delivery too early can be a good thing because like, but at the same time it's going to affect your client in terms of like the client now needs to check especially when it comes to delivery, because they will need maybe to fast track the release of the software to the public. Sometimes, if let's say they want to wait, and then some features might be stolen or someone might leak the software. You see, like they've got all those problems that you face there. Now, when it comes to late delivery always is going to have a problem. Like I've noticed this. There is a time when we were waiting for a game. I think what was it? It was which game was that? I think it was Modern Warfare. I think that was Modern Warfare. There was a certain package that was supposed to release that we were anticipating like crazy. We were waiting for it, and then it got delayed by like a month. So imagine that anticipation that we had, the build up that we had. We're so excited and stuff when we were waiting for it, and then on the day, and then they tell us no, it's delayed. Then that part anticipation started dying out, dying down. That when it was released, a lot of people had lost interest. But if they delivered it on the very same day when they wanted to, when they were supposed to, a lot of people were going to buy. I'm pretty sure even their sales were going to be very, very high. But now, when they do that, their sales are not going to be high, especially on the opening day. They might gradually increase with time, but it's not going to be the same. You see, so delivery affects. So whenever you are dealing with goods and services, you need to understand that aspect there, that there needs to be a balance. You shouldn't deliver too early. At the same time, you shouldn't deliver too late. So because now when you deliver too early, also it means something. It means that your estimation was wrong. It's either one is the scope of work that you gave was too complicated, but when you went in, you sat down and then you overcharged your client. You overcharged your client, and that gives you, that appearance of untrustworthy. Because like for myself, I'll be honest with myself is if I give someone a project, like I've seen a lot of people do that. Like someone will come to you and say, okay, can you make me a website, a one-page website? And then the guy says, okay, cool. I would deliver it in 7 days. Now, if you're a web developer and then you say you're going to deliver a one-page website in 7 days, what are you doing all those days? And then from there, and then you tell your client that, okay, I'll be charging you 120 Rand an hour for 8 hours a day for those next 7 days. So now do your maths there and you check. So now that is 8 times what? That is 8 times what? 8 times 7 for the number of days, isn't it? That is 8 times 7. So what is 8 times 7? 48, right? Not 48, 56. So 8 times 7 is going to be your 56 then. 8 times 7 will give you a 56. And then now after getting that 56 and then multiply it by 120. Multiply it by 120. Let me see. 120 times 56. That will give you 6,720 for a one-page website. Now, when you look at that, and then now you ask yourself a question then like, okay, is this person ripping off their client or what? Because that is how most of these developers work. This is how you usually work. But now, when you're dealing with a one-page website and then you say that you're going to take 7 days and then you're charging 120 rand an hour, of which basically you're allowed to charge up to 8 hours, and then if you want to have overtime, then you can work overtime, but you're allowed to charge up to 8 hours a day. So when you say now 8 times that, and then now look at it, which means technically you are ripping off your client. You see, so now that is a delivery time that is a little bit too long. Also, now when you do that and then you charge your client, and then you deliver within 2 days, but yet you had said to your client that you're going to do it in 7 days, and then you deliver in 2 days after your client has paid for you 6,720, but then you do the website, you deliver it in 2 days. So now, what does it? Does that mean that you didn't sleep for the past 2 days? You're working on the website, which is not really true. So what exactly does it tell? You delivered too early, but you charge your client money that is enough for you to charge for 7 days, which means you're being dishonest somewhere in your time planning and in your charging. You see that? So you need to be careful, especially over these things there as a developer. Those are some of the aspects that you need to be aware of there, right? So we're looking at that aspect there of supply chain, the lead time and stuff. And then the second aspect there is information on status of orders. So the internal performance of the logistics function is dependent on the efficiency and effectiveness of each logistics component. For example, one performance indicator for procurement will be its ability to dissect information on the numbers issued there. Okay, this appears to a little bit too vague here. What the simple saying is that status on orders, unexpected deliveries or unexpected orders that arrive or leave can disrupt operations and can put stock at risk. See what I was talking about there? That, for instance, some companies they develop software early, and then you decide to shelf it a little bit so that you can wait for the release date. When you do that, you're putting your company at risk because someone might hack into your servers, steal the software, or corrupt your servers, or like anything can happen during that period of time. Anything can happen, literally. So you need to be very careful, especially when you're dealing with that. So your information on status of orders, you need to be aware of it. So know when exactly your orders are ready, when your exactly orders are leaving, when your orders are arriving. And then there is also efficiency. Efficiency is I don't even know how to define it. So how efficient are you? Like how efficient is your entire process there? How efficient is the entire process? So notice here, saying that a late delivery will mean a higher incidence, especially if you're dealing with malaria prevention. So a good example here is the request for malaria prevention medication ordered to be pre-positioned before a malaria season. So you are ordering. So for instance, malaria season is coming. Summer is coming, for instance. So places like Limpopo, they are very prevalent when it comes to malaria because of the mosquitoes and the heat. Now, imagine now if the hospitals in Limpopo say, okay, summer is coming. It's not summer yet. Can you deliver malaria medication? Then they order that in June. Summer starts probably the 1st of August. So now, and then from there, it has been pre-ordered. But then this delivery from maybe Department of Health is then delivered in December. What's going to happen now to the people? So now, instead of it helping people prevent malaria, now it becomes useless because there is now a higher incidence in malaria, but that prevention medication doesn't work anymore because now you don't need it anymore. Now what you need is treatment. You don't need the prevention anymore. Now you need treatment. You see, so hence now when it comes to efficiency, you need to know when what is needed, and how much of that item is needed. Then if it's needed there and then you deal with it. Then if not, then you just leave it. And then there is the total chain cost. The total chain cost now talks about the focus on reducing the total cost of logistics. Like I think any business understands, but it's all about reducing the total. Hence, this is the reason why a lot of companies nowadays, especially if you check the technical companies or tech companies, they are going online. They're doing remote jobs and things like that because they are trying to cut down on supply chain. They're trying to cut back on that. And then one of the reasons why electricity cost is rising so much in South Africa is because of the total supply chain cost. We're using trucks to transport coal from the mines to the power stations. If we had trains, it's cheaper. See, so hence now that aspect there. And then inventory costs. Now, inventory costs basically are talking about things like inventory, insurance, taxes, storage space, rents, and things like that. And then those are all inventory costs there. And then inventory value basically talks about, like you remember, inventory talks about what is there. And then the value here, in recent years, the concept of value has become accepted as a difference between the value for customer attributes to your product or service and the cost of acquiring it. That is what they're talking about, the value there. So that the value of a customer attribute to your product and the cost of acquiring it. So now you notice here. So when you're talking about that, like we're talking about that aspect of holding Ichi. There was that time for looting this last year or last year. Now a lot of shops were caught wanting. If you look at shops like Game, Macro, the reason why they were caught wanting is because these guys had excessive stock that they were holding in their shops. Now, when they were holding that excessive stock, sitting there in the warehouses, but the value or the customer attributes to the product at that particular time wasn't high, but at the same time, these guys have got a lot of the stock sitting. So now that itself posed a very great risk to the company, because now when people started breaking in and taking stuff, they were taking stuff in bulk. Why? Because it was there and it was available. So this here tends to be very dangerous, especially for most companies, because most companies, they bulk up stock while just waiting for customer attribute to a certain product rises. So now when that rises and then this shop starts releasing it, but most of the times they will keep and hold onto that stock. Then that becomes a problem sometime later, because what happens if, like for instance, if it's perishable, what happens? They will lose it because the demand isn't that much. And then order costs, order management costs. Obviously, this is cost of issuing orders and closing orders there. But now, not just that, there's also handling inside, there's communication, because you still have to communicate, you still have to handle and things like that. Cost of waste, this is the stuff that you do not need. And then now, if you notice here, every time all these items, all these aspects that you're talking about here, we're talking about E&M in terms of goods, mostly more, unlike services, but also services, they also attribute to all of these components, or to all of these items that we have here. The services also, they fall into the same, because a service also is more like a good but an intangible good. So yeah, I think today this is where we stop before we move on to the third module. where we were gathering techniques for computer system development, where we were looking at what exactly relates to us a lot. So if there's any questions, please, the platform is open now. Any clarifications, things like that. But to do the most here, I'll give you the dates. So your formative is gonna be due next week, Wednesday. Oh no, it's summative next week, Thursday, on the 24th. Your summative is due. And then your formative is due the following week on Wednesday on the 30th. So please remember the dates. Thursday, 24 August, summative. And then Wednesday, the 30th of August, summative, formative, sorry. So any question that we have, any query? Shelley, I see a hand, or it was back then?
Please clarify yourself for me. Do we start with summative or start with formative?
Which one have you been starting with all this time?
Formative, but then now you're saying we must start with formative, summative, I mean.
Okay.
Okay.
Start with the one. Okay, start. The formative is the one that we start with. The formative is the one that starting it, and then you end with the summative, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. So start with a formative. Formative. We say it what? 30, 24. Yeah, 24 August. August or August? It's August. And then yeah, and then the summative is going to be the 30th of August. There we go. Enough. My spelling is wrong somewhere, plus don't judge me. So yeah, there we go.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, guys. Have a good weekend. We'll meet on Monday. If there's no questions.
Bye, everyone.